This week, we're discussing a major delay for Assassin's Creed and everyone's favorite topic, emulation. This is the Good Game, Bad Game podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Good Game, Bad Game podcast. I'm your host, Spencer, and with me is a man who simply ate too many bagels this past weekend. It's my co-host, Mike. Mike, how you feeling?
Full still. Do you ever have a day dedicated to eating, and for the next couple of days you feel like you're getting hungry and you're like, I can't possibly be hungry, even though it's been multiple days?
Yeah, I normally feel that way about those special event types, a massive New Year's Eve party or a Super Bowl party where you're just kind of eating a ton of snacks all day,
Mm-hmm.
and it's you're not even necessarily eating a full meal at any point. It's just like a culmination that makes up a meal. That's those types of days that give me that feeling.
You're still eating 6,000 calories, even though
it's just these tiny little bites.
Yeah. You think you're being good all day. Yeah, it's been like that.
I can only
Christine
imagine.
handled it better than I did. I mean, we were driving home from New York City, and we got 2 hours into the drive, and she's like, I could eat.
And you're still writhing in pain. You're like, too much bagel.
I'm literally just staring at the road in silence and just trying not to think about it.
Starting to kind of get a cold sweat because of the mention of food.
Mm-hmm. We ended up stopping to eat on the way home, and we didn't as I told you before the show, but context for the listener, I suppose, we didn't go straight home after Bagel Fest. We went back to Sleepy Hollow and walked around that area for a bit. But on the way back, we stopped at a brewery in the Catskills, and I have to call this out because I've now lived back in New York for 2 years now and have yet to find a proper Philly style cheesesteak.
Ooh.
We had one in Syracuse, but I didn't get to go there before they closed. I stopped at this brewery called Upward. Like I said, it's in the Catskills, and I thought we were just gonna get snacks here. They had dumplings, and I was like, okay, that sounds about good. I could do that. But I was reading the menu, and they had a Philly cheesesteak, and in New York, a Philly cheesesteak is typically just Italian bread with really thick cut steak and American cheese and mayo and just peppers and onions on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the really thin sliced ribeye. But on the menu, it highlighted, it's an Amoroso's roll. They used Cooper Sharp cheese. I was like, wow, they actually know their stuff. And so I got it, and it was fantastic. So if you're in the Catskills and you want a Philly cheesesteak, Upward Brewing is the place to go.
That made me a little hungry. I gotta admit.
Yeah, I'm thinking about cheesesteak for breakfast this morning. We'll see.
Yeah, it sounded pretty delicious. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, goddamn. I was just out somewhere, totally not gaming related. And somebody it was a brisket cheesesteak technically. And they described it as tasting like an Arby's beef and cheddar. And I was like, that is the worst way to describe. That is the worst way I think somebody could describe or try to sell me on a cheesesteak that they're eating. So two very different approaches there.
Yeah.
Yours was a very plussed up and you said Cooper Sharp, and as everybody knows,
right cheese.
Could there be a better cheese, right?
No. Absolutely not.
That's fantastic. Well, enough about food. Tell me about the games you played this past
I
week.
think you're going to be happy with me this week.
Oh, I bet.
I can't say for sure that I didn't, but I'm like fairly certain I didn't play NCAA, or I guess
Oh,
college football
okay.
this week. Yeah. So good for me. Um, but I did play a ton of Outlaws and still really enjoying that game.
That is fantastic. Um, how much time do you think you've put into it at this point?
3 or 4 hours, maybe.
Okay. Like, do you feel like
Um,
you're beyond like the pretty intro stuff at this point? Would you say
I
you're
would
like in the
say,
game?
yeah, yeah, like just barely, but
Yeah.
like I'm at the point where like I can do like side missions and like there's an
Okay.
option. Um, yeah, it's good. I have a hard time like keeping track of why I'm doing things. Like it's kind of one of those games
Gotcha.
where it's just like a little bit grindy, but like you're trying to prove yourself to like different factions. So they just have you doing bitch work.
Okay.
But it's fun bitch work. But yeah, it's good. It did like I would say probably one of my hours of playing it was just messing around with graphics because I turned it on and like for some reason it looked like it was like PS3 graphics.
Oh,
And no idea why. Like change a bunch of settings on my TV, change a bunch of settings on my Xbox, and like nothing nothing seemed to work. Um and so I went on Reddit, of course, as you do, and people just said like depending on the scene, the graphics just get really iffy in that game. So I'm starting to notice that. 'Cause I think I said a couple of weeks ago when I started playing Outlaws that I thought it looked really good.
mm-hmm.
But it seems like in really like highlight scenes, like daytime scenes, like the graphics get really touchy.
Oh,
Like to the point where you can like see pixels and field of vision is like not far at all.
interesting.
Yeah, it's strange, but it's all very conditional.
Right. Like it's only in like a set like setting, really, like that you even
Yeah,
notice it. Huh.
I guess the good news is like this game pretty much from what I can tell mostly takes place in like nighttime neon city kind of style. So,
Sure.
and it looks fine in that. But yeah, still been enjoying it. I don't think it does like my I think my biggest complaint about it is that it doesn't really do a good job of telling you what you need to be doing or where you need to be going.
Okay.
Um there is I don't know, I don't need to get terribly far into it, but it's just kind of annoying. Maybe I'm just not used to it yet, but like I said, I've been playing it for 4 hours and I find myself pausing to think about what buttons I need to push because I just have no idea. And it's like one of those things where you frequently accidentally use like whatever their like med kit
Oh,
thing
yeah.
is. Just because I don't know what button to push. It's
Yeah.
like it's weird.
And then that's always so annoying because, once you've put enough time into the game, all of those like we'll call them secondary actions where it's like left on the D-pad specifically does this while right on the D-pad specifically does this, and like you'll conflate the two for the longest time, and then you'll finally like get it down, and then you'll play a game that has them flipped.
Yeah.
Like there's just never any consistency with that type of stuff, and it's always just so frustrating.
Yeah. I'm definitely not going to be able to play anything else.
Right, like these types of games always require that you just like dedicate like nope, once you've started me, if you don't finish, like it's just going to be hell for you. I love it. Wouldn't have it any other way.
Nope, absolutely not.
All right. So you played some Outlaws. Anything else?
Flappy Bird.
A little more
That's probably
Flappy
about it.
Bird. All right.
Yeah, yeah. Still haven't beaten my high school record.
Oh my god. So you just like suck at games now.
I don't think it's so much me as it is the developer.
Uh oh. Oh man.
I kid.
Good times. I was telling you already, but I've been playing more Binding on the Vita and
Hell yeah.
Lost Power. So like, yeah, that's what the handhelds are for, right? And then I was also telling you that Shelby, like at her markets, I'll normally if I go with I'll bring my Vita, if there's some downtime. And again, just been loving Binding. So but yeah, I had somebody walk up to the booth and like while the person they were with was like checking out some stuff, they just go, "Is that a Vita?" And I was like, "Yep, yep." And they were like, "That's wild. I haven't seen one of those in forever." And it was just like such a funny moment. Because I was also telling you that like normally, people when they see it are like, "Is that a Switch?" And I was like, and it's always like, "No," but imagine if the PS3 and Nintendo made a baby. And that's basically what the Vita is. It was before its time in so many ways.
It sure was. Man, I really want to play my Vita now.
Yeah, it brings like a tear to the eye, You just it's the Michael Scott with tears in his eyes smiling gif. It's really how you sum it up when somebody's like, "Is that a Switch?" It's like, sit down.
Not rich.
Sit down, child. let me let me spin you a tale of a time
When gaming was fun.
Yeah.
And you had to hold your Vita up to a light to see through a piece of paper, and it rarely worked.
Yep. Good times. Also, I finished, or finally like cleaned up and got the platinum in Dave the Diver.
Nice.
Phenomenal game. Love it so much. Probably my, sneak preview. Normally at the end of the year, we'll talk about like the favorite game we've played from like the past year, but definitely early contention. Great game. Definitely checks off a lot of boxes for me.
Love it.
And then, as promised, also last week I gave like an in progress review of the Plucky Squire. So just circling back, I have finished it. Kind of just one of those like perfect games where you kind of know exactly what it's setting out to do, and then it does it extremely well. And it's contained in a very short story. Like, it's not the same in terms of the overall game, but in that same vein, it kind of like reminds me a lot of like Stray, right? Where it's just like everything that Stray did, it did just so well. And that's exactly how I feel about the Plucky Squire, and like the way they had you interact with puzzles in and outside of the book. So like going from the 2D world to the 3D world was just done extremely well. The story as a whole that they were trying to tell, with it being a storybook story, was written really well. The gist of it is that like the bad guy of the storybook somehow becomes like aware and suddenly is able to manipulate the world outside of the storybook and starts to try and like change the story. It even does like a cool thing that I like when games will manipulate the like title screen or the like intro screens and loading screens and stuff, and make you feel like your game is like glitching basically, but it's all like meant to be happening. It does that, and yeah, they had a very clear vision, and they executed on it extremely well, I would say. So, uh, would recommend. Would recommend. And I think that's it for me for games I've played this past week. Mike, are you still there?
Oh, trust me, I was talking. My dumbass was muted. In short, sounds like you had a great week.
I was worried. I was worried that maybe you had another gas leak.
I would have been better off.
I did. It was a great week for games.
What's really funny about me being muted there is that I was just fucking bumbling trying to say what I wanted to say. So honestly, thanks Discord, you actually saved me for once.
Oh man. I was like nervous because I didn't really want to start talking and make you feel like I was talking over you, but also I was like, he's been muted for a while, so I think
I'm glad you can see that I'm muted.
I think I should probably check in. Yeah, I'm happy you don't just like mute your mic. I'm happy you actually do it on Discord so that I can see. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't trust hardware mutes.
Yeah, that's fair. Too many never mind.
Too many times on Teams saying this fucking idiot and then realizing that.
Yeah. What was that, Mike? Nothing. I thought this mic was fucking muted. What?
Whoa,
What? All right, let's get into the stories for this week. First up, in a shocking development of awareness from Ubisoft, Assassin's Creed Shadows has been delayed. It's now been pushed to February 2025. It was originally supposed to come out in November of this year, so basically a 3-month push. And there's a couple of different reasons. Basically, it sounds like from initial play tests and stuff like that, it seems like there's a need for a lot of polish. I don't know if you remember, like we brought it up. It was a pretty big gripe towards like the beginning of like the initial announcement from a lot of like Japanese people that like they felt like culturally that the mark was missed in a lot of ways, and it was down to like a lot of very just environmental things like shots of both like the cherry blossom trees and also full rice fields. And I guess I don't personally know anything about seasons and stuff like that, but apparently like that was like a very clear like, well, both of those things wouldn't happen at the same time, so you clearly just went like, think Japan and I think of these two things, so just populate them, right?
Cherry blossoms and rice fields.
Right.
Around.
So it's like a lot of stuff like that that I guess they're going back and polishing, but you would think these are things that would be picked up on early. But the main reason I wanted to bring this up was because one of the other main reasons it seems, and this is according to Insider Gaming, is that some of it comes down to that a lot of the internal teams have been kind of asking for additional time and for a delay to happen and to push back the release date and all this stuff. And this has been like ongoing with past games, specifically Star Wars Outlaws, which uh kind of had a whatever release overall, it would seem, especially for a game that is utilizing such a massive IP as Star Wars. Um, and so it seems like that has kind of helped to bring attention to the need for maybe additional polish, and why it's a good idea to push these back. Basically, Eves in an internal memo said that like Star Wars initial sales were, quote, softer than expected. Um, Review wise, I guess a 76 out of 100 on Metacritic is probably bad by Ubisoft standards, right? Like they probably would try to pride themselves on, only releasing. I'm sure they would only want to release a 90 and above, but I think the state of Ubisoft, the general public probably would assume a mid 70s, but ideally an 80 or above. So I don't think a 76 out of 100 is necessarily bad, but I can understand why that's seen less than favorably by Ubisoft. And then the user score also is relatively low. So I guess I'm curious. Do you think Ubisoft? Do you think this is a sign that Ubisoft is actually learning a lesson, or do you think we're just going to see continued like misses from Ubisoft?
They're maturing.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, my initial instinct is it's hopeful that they're taking their time with an Assassin's Creed game, just given like the past 10 years with
Right.
that game, where it was just like pumping out as much shit as you can. Um, I don't know. I mean, my observation of Ubisoft over the past 2-3 years has really been one of like consolidation, making sure they're trying to put good stuff out. I mean, look at like X Defiant. Um, I played the alpha for that, and I thought it was fine, and it still got delayed like another 6 months or something like that. I don't know if anybody's even playing it, but I think their issue right now isn't so much like quality; it's just marketing.
Okay.
Like, and I think that this new Assassin's Creed game is a step in the right direction. It just feels like they've, for the past couple of years, been pumping out stuff that people don't necessarily want
Yeah.
and ignoring things that people do. Not that I take that personally or anything.
What could Mike be talking about?
Raymond. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a good move. I mean, we had talked about when they did the trailer and those specific things with like, oh, they would never occur in the same season. Like Ubisoft could have very easily, and I think in a past life would have done this, just said, okay, whatever, go screw.
Yeah.
90% of people aren't going to know that.
Right.
But the fact that they listened and they're trying to make things more refined, I think it's hopeful.
Yeah, for sure. I think off the bat what you said, where it's like, at the very least, it's nice to see them, doing this on Assassin's Creed of all games, right? Because it's probably not the case anymore, but with how big of a series Assassin's Creed is, you can probably just do whatever you want, slap the Assassin's Creed name on it, and you'll do decent sales, And again, that's the returns there are definitely diminishing, but that still has to ring true to some extent. But yeah, I mean, I guess also within that same vein, you could say the same thing about slapping Star Wars on something, and the fact that Outlaws has done poorly, I would say, really by like sales standards, and then again, like um not that a 76 is bad, but like again, by certain standards, I would say when that game was first being shown off, my expectations were for it were definitely a lot higher, right? Like, so I was shocked to see that it's coming in as like a mid 70s. Still a game I want to pick up, and from the sounds of it, you're enjoying it, and like
Mhm.
at the end of the day, that's obviously all that matters. But there are plenty of people who also, and there's plenty of games out there that people will see as, you know, more worthy of their time at the end of the day. So yeah, I hope it's like a twofold situation where it's like they're realizing maybe it's not so easy just to slap a specific brand onto a game and it'll go crazy, and also um, seeing the need when your internal teams especially are crying for that additional, you know, time and everything to make sure the game releases in a favorable state, um, is good to see. And I feel like that's the most frustrating part of this, like this story, right? Is that the internal teams have been continuously saying like this needs more time, that needs more time. They said it about Outlaws, right? Like we need more time to make sure this is in a better state. And to see that that just falls on deaf ears is so incredibly frustrating, because you always speculate, right, when a game releases in a with a ton of bugs, or in um, just not in a perfect polished state. You always assume that people knew about these things and that they were asking for more time, and that, you know, the higher ups just don't provide it. But you know, at the end of the day, you never technically know, right? And so to actually like have that just confirmed, and with a company as big as Ubisoft, with as many with the track record that they have, it's really you know, frustrating that they really do just willingly release, you know, games in a buggy state, or just to hit the deadline that they set, and it's just a bummer. It just really sucks.
Yeah, and I wonder if it's like just the mindset of nobody wants to make, well, few people want to make like a generational game anymore. Like games like GTA, where you're going to be playing it for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically, okay, people are going to play this game for the first year, maybe two, and then they'll never talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, how much effort do we really need to put into that? When you're spending 4 years to make a game that people play for two, I think the more time you add, obviously, the more that diminishes the value.
Yeah, no, that's a very fair call out.
I don't like it,
Yeah,
but
yeah, no, it's a really fair call out. Um, just another thing, while we're talking about Assassin's Creed, and I think it was Gene Park who I recently saw talk about it. Um, and it helps that like now Ghost of Yotai was announced, right? And it's just like it's so funny that uh Ubisoft is finally giving like a Japanese Assassin's Creed, you know, samurai and all of that people have probably been asking for since like Assassin's Creed 3, or maybe like 4, like when they did like Black Flag, and you could really see like the different environments and stuff like that you could like put assassins in. Like, oh, the next logical thing would be to do this, that, whatever, right? And it's so funny that they're releasing it now, when again the Assassin's Creed name, I feel like the value is not necessarily at an all-time low, but it's definitely low comparatively. And they're also trying to release it at a time when like now there's a ton of samurai games,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like we've talked about that probably uh, to no
At
end.
nauseum.
Yeah. When we watch these showcases and we're like, oh, this is the new hotness. Um, there's so many samurai games now, and it just feels like that doesn't help its case either. It feels like it's
No.
also gonna cause it to fall kind of flat, but and they got to try and like get this out before Ghost of Yotai, which I don't think we have an actual release date. We just have 2025, so it's like
Yeah, I was gonna ask.
you have a rough
Like,
window.
well, when did Ghost of Tsushima come out?
I want to say it was like August, September, October,
Yeah,
November, somewhere in there, which I know that's a huge
like,
window I just provided, but
but like fall. You know, I think if
because that was 2020
yeah.
with The Last of Us 2, right? So The Last of Us 2 came out in right? Last of Us 2 was 2020 as well.
Yes.
And that came out in like
That was
early
August.
summer. Oh,
Was it? I thought it came out around August. Maybe I'm thinking. I know The Last of Us, the first one on PS3 came out August 13th, 2013, or something like that. Well, Ghost of Tsushima came out July 17.
and The Last of Us Part 2 came out June 19th.
Wow.
I was fairly certain it came out before Ghost of Tsushima. So I mean, to go back to the Ghost of Yotai, if you assume roughly the same, like, will they try to release in like July? Because they also have everybody has this ticking time bomb, right? So Assassin's Creed Shadows has two time bombs technically. One is Ghost of Yotai, and then the other one is the time bomb that everybody has if they're trying to release a game next year, and that's GTA 6.
Mm-hmm.
You have to if you have to get your game out 2 months before GTA 6 to give people enough time to play it and be in love with it and like and fully enjoy it before nobody has time for any other games.
Man, what's that window going to look like? Because you got to think like you can't release a game for at least a quarter after that, after GTA comes out either.
I mean, Call of
Like,
Duty will. Call of Duty will do God's work. They'll
yeah,
they'll
sure.
they'll they'll salute while the nuke goes off right in front of them. Yeah, man, that's gonna be crazy. I we'll have to try and remember this and try and like pull numbers for all the games that release in the window this year versus all the games that release in the window of GTA 6 after it's been out for a little bit. We'll have to look at like the past couple of years and like the release cycle and the pure volume because I would have to imagine it's going to be a fairly steep drop off.
Yeah, I mean, if I think if you're a developer and you're smart, you just give it time.
I mean, obviously, I think like certain games can be exempt from that line of thinking. Um, but yeah, I mean, it'll touch many different areas that I think a lot of people are going to have to think twice. So anyway, that's the additional like situation of Assassin's Creed Shadows. And again, like the window in which they have, and again, you could say that their window has long passed to release this game, but nonetheless, here we are, and it's that window's only getting tighter and tighter. So it's also even more pertinent that they release the game in the best state possible. So good on them. And hopefully this works out. Anything else you want to say on Ubisoft or Assassin's Creed?
No, I mean, I'm actually I will probably get this game. Seems interesting enough. This will be like my first Assassin's Creed game since, I don't know, what was the first one for the PS4? Was it Black Flag?
Yeah, Black Flag. I'm pretty sure it was the first on PS4.
That was probably the last one. Well, Unity after that.
I'm fairly certain. Yes.
Okay, so that was my last one. But used to love that game, that series.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Your first platinum, right? Assassin's Creed 2.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. Since Valhalla, only Mirage has come out, right? Or was there another one that I'm forgetting?
There was Mirage, and then there was like a Middle Eastern one, right?
Wasn't that Mirage? Where it was like back to like more old school Assassin's Creed?
Well, then there was the one in Egypt too.
That's Origins. That was like the first of the the Assassin's Creed revamp. It was like Origins, Odyssey, then Valhalla.
Oh, okay.
Unless there was another one that I could be forgetting about.
No, I think I'm confusing the most recent one with
Origins.
I think I'm confusing Mirage with Origins. Yeah.
Okay. So like
that was weird.
Well, I'm sorry. Did somebody want to say something?
Who has their mic
on? Okay, yeah,
Discord
it's just
picks that up.
Of course. Okay, it's just Mirage, that I haven't played because I think when Mirage was coming out, I was saying how like Assassin's Creed is just that series where it's like I tell myself it's like I'm not gonna play it, and then inevitably, eventually, I come around and like get it. But I still have yet to get Mirage, and now a whole new Assassin's Creed game is about to be out.
Mirage did look decent.
It did. It really
did.
Like
you said, it looked like old Assassin's Creed.
And I feel like the reviews for it were fairly favorable, if I remember correctly. Just like people specifically being hands-on with it and talking about. I'm not even talking about scores necessarily. I'm talking about your kind of funnies of the world or
yeah. But again, nobody's talking about it right now.
No.
So goes back to my earlier point.
Right. 2 years and you're basically wiped off the map.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk then one other thing. As we know, Nintendo
got one of them Nintendo Switches.
Nintendo Switch. Nintendo, they're the
South's second favorite Switch.
Jesus.
Anyway.
Nintendo, they're the proverbial kings and queens of shutting down rips, emulators, ROMs, etc. They love a good lawsuit. You will never see Nintendo back away from an opportunity to sue a 13-year-old. In that vein, fun fact.
Speaking of samurais.
I think it was Tom Warren, when Twitter started allowing for the AI image generation. with zero moderation. He did a bunch of like, I think he did one of like Mario smoking a cigar, drinking a beer or something. And
Yeah.
literally Nintendo hit him with like the image was disabled. And so like if you go back to the tweet, like you can't view it anymore. That's how good Nintendo is. Uh they have the resources. Anyway, all of this is to say that a Nintendo Switch emulator, Ryujinx, Ryujinx, has seemingly ceased development following pressure from Nintendo. This is from an IGN article. I think it's very important to just note that it is following pressure. There was no lawsuit or anything like that. So I do find that interesting, and maybe what some of the finer details around the decisions and stuff like that are. But I do find it very discouraging and very disheartening that, you know, whatever team was working. I think this was an open source project that was working on, you know, creating this. It's super disheartening to see this kind of get stopped in its tracks. And to kind of get out ahead of it, I sent you like a little blurb in our chat that I wanted to make sure I brought up. And this is via Wikipedia, so whatever problems you have with Wikipedia is fine. It's better than whatever AI slop Google tries to give me as my answer, so take that for what it's worth. But from Wikipedia on a article that is specifically about emulation, while emulation software itself are legal as long as they don't infringe copyright protections on the console, emulating games is only so when legitimately purchasing the game physically and ripping the contents. So there's a very key thing here, right? Creating an emulator in and of itself is totally fine. So there's no reason technically for this to be shut down unless it was infringing on any sort of copyright protections, which again, we don't really have all the details, so maybe. But it just really sucks that it feels like it's one of those things where emulators are obviously very, very important for game preservation. I'm trying to think. It was now 3 weeks ago when Concord released and spectacularly also unreleased itself. PlayStation literally removed the content from in game.
To that.
In game. It
might be my new favorite phrase.
It was a post release unrelease, and PlayStation removed Concord from people's systems.
How dare they? They replaced it with a U2 album.
It's just one of those things where it's like, you know, emulation and ROM rips and stuff like that, you know, the legality of them can get murky for sure, but they're super, super important from a preservation aspect. And as we see media get wiped, you know, from the digital landscape left and right, it's becoming all the more pertinent and all the more important that these few heroes who step up to do this work do it. So yeah, very discouraging, very disheartening to see. But again, it's Nintendo, so not all that surprising.
I'm very tied up on this line as long as they don't infringe copyright protections on the console.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to know what, because that's got to vary console by console, right? Like, I'm sure it's all very similar and as locked down as possible, but like, can Nintendo say basically any emulation is a copyright infringement?
Right, like I don't know where the legal jargon can stretch. It feels like one of those like how objective is that, right? Hopefully it's very clear cut, but it does give off the vibe of subjectivity, murkiness, and yeah. I mean, fuck, like the Pokemon Company, with I'm sure the help of Nintendo, they were going after Pal World, right?
Which just got released on Xbox.
Which just got released on PlayStation. It's been out on Xbox.
And that's what I. Oh yeah, you're right.
No, wait, you were getting excited about something. This was good.
No,
Go ahead.
no.
Does
I'm just gonna unrelease myself now.
Does Siri or Google want to chime in?
Don't say that too loud.
Was it Google?
No, it was. I was trying to look up when. What were we looking at? The Last of Us at that point?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to look that up and an ad just played.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, and it wasn't my keeper this time.
No, I forget what we were saying.
Same.
Oh, Pal World.
Pal World, yeah.
We suck at this.
Yeah. But we've got a new song, so we got to keep going for at least a couple more episodes.
At least a couple more. But yeah, Pal World. I mean, it's been out for a minute and only just releasing on PlayStation, and at that same time, is also being slapped with a copyright infringement because Pokemon has the copyright to a ball that catches monsters. I think that's like been the smoking gun. It's not the
really?
It's not the clearly Electabuzz with a Gatling gun, or whatever the fuck, right? Which is kind of fair, right? Because like even if they look very similar to a Pokemon, it's like how could you possibly, right? Like anything drawn in a certain way could be a Pokemon, you know? So
Sure.
so it's not too surprising that like they weren't able to like necessarily go that route, but it's semi funny that like it comes down to the fact of how you are catching your pals or capturing them or whatever. That also reminds me, I need to play Pal World.
Do you?
Yeah, man, it looks like a lot of fun. I'm jealous that everybody else got to play it for so long. Anyway, Nintendo is what I'm getting at is Nintendo is not afraid to go after literally anybody. And there are times where it's like, again, like the case of Power World, it's like, all right, maybe you have something here, but when it comes to something that is, you know, very much above board, like emulation, sucks that they're almost too buttoned up when it comes to that stuff. They're too good.
Man,
So
what are
anyway,
they gonna do when like Mario reaches public domain?
I don't know. I don't know. But man, I already am tired of the slop Mario horror games that we're gonna get.
Yeah.
Oh, in this game, you play as Peach and you're running around her castle and you're trying to escape horror Mario. Cool. Oh, but what if Mario had chainsaw?
This is exactly what it's going to be.
I know. So anyway, anything else on Nintendo and their legal team?
No. Just, if you're listening, watch yourself. 'Cause they're coming. They're
Yeah.
everywhere. They're coming everywhere.
If they're listening, We love Nintendo. Nintendo's great. Please release the Switch 2 information.
But only to us, so we can break it.
Yeah, that'd be great. Could you imagine? What if we just very confidently say stuff as if it were fact? And like,
Yeah.
if we nail it, holy shit. Because you can, like, you know, if we're confident enough, Tom Henderson's gonna have an inside source that he goes to and says, "Is this true?" And the person's gonna say yay or nay, and then he's gonna be like, "Holy fuck, these dumb idiots! How did they know? Who's their inside source?" And it's just we just threw shit at a wall, and it was right.
Yeah.
And if we're wrong, people will forget about it in 2 years, like Assassin's Creed Mirage.
Yeah.
So
Exactly. Mirage is such an apt name.
All right, that does it for this episode. Thank you all so much for listening. As always, if you could leave us a rating or review wherever you do listen to the podcast, it would be greatly appreciated. Go over to our YouTube channel in the comment section. Let us know your thoughts on the Assassin's Creed delay. Are you happy that Ubisoft is maybe learning and growing? And let us know your thoughts on emulation and how you feel about this most recent shutdown. Other than that, we will talk to you next week.